Hey everyone. Today we are talking about something that I've personally struggled with quite a bit, to be honest, and it is imposter syndrome. You know, if you've ever felt like you're not good enough or that you're just faking it until you're making it, then this video is for you. So, what really happened with myself, what helped me overcome it, first of all, we'll start with something, valuable. So what really helped me overcome imposter syndrome was experience. Just doing something, over and over and over again. When I started working with people at my first proper job, adult job, that was something I had to get used to kind of new communication, speaking to adults for big job reasons and everything, and it was something that was very new to me. But actually, once I got into the flow of improving my skills, really seeing the results of my effort, then I started to feel more confident. Feedback obviously plays a huge role in that. And positive feedback, that helps. But for me, I was getting positive feedback in terms of the outcome of the work that I was doing, but it never really made me fully confident. It was really the constructive feedback that actually supported me in terms of not feeling like an imposter anymore. It was really the constructive feedback that pointed out areas that I could actually improve that really made the difference for me. So, in essence, the feedback gave me clarity. Okay. Instead of constantly worrying that I was making mistakes in every area or at every opportunity, it actually overviewed what I was doing and said, you're doing a good job, and it's here, here, and here that you could actually improve in these areas. And finally getting specific areas that I was making a mistake or I could better myself in, that actionable information actually really helped cure the imposter syndrome because, it kind of squashed the worry that I was just messing up all the time at every opportunity, So that made me feel a lot more in control. Once you get that experience, you can start to look back like I did and you can see how much you've grown, how much more organized and skilled at what you're doing and confident than when you had first initially started. And all of that progress right there, that in itself is proof that I'm not an imposter or that you're not an imposter. Just someone that's learning and trying to get better every single day. So look, if you're feeling stuck or if you're feeling unsure, remember that experience is really the best teacher. Again, obviously that was speaking in a professional setting as a writer, as someone that's creative. I've definitely struggled with imposter syndrome as well. From the writing perspective and challenges, there's a lot of there's a lot of common conversation around you don't need to be published to call yourself a writer, you don't need to have a book deal, or you don't need to do this or that. As long as you're creating to some extent with words and you're happy to express yourself in that way, or even just that you're doing it, then of course you can call yourself a writer. But for me and in my struggle with it, I was always outlining different projects. I was always getting an idea for a story and putting it in the hero structure or some other story structure that I would get off of a TikTok or something. And I would just spend time plotting the story out in those parts, and then I would never really get to writing it because I would either feel overwhelmed by the idea of creating something that would match my idea of perfection, or I would just move on. There's only so much my head would kind of tell me, oh, you could be writing that right now, or you could be doing that right now, until eventually it got to the point that little voice just left my head. It was just gone, So really what helped in terms of writing and in terms of creative expression was a couple things. Primarily, I think joining a writing class where I was around other new people who were new at the skill I was trying to do really helped. I think that honestly the main thing it done was giving me an anchor point, a base level to judge myself. Again, that sounds bad to judge myself, but really, and I know I shouldn't be talking about comparison either, but to essentially see where I was in terms of the people that had an interest in writing, like in terms of the beginners, where was I? And that really helped because there's people in that class that had never wrote anything before, that just saw like the ad online. They're like, yeah, let's do it. And then there's other people who wrote different little pieces, parts of stories and stuff like that, similar to myself. So, that really helped in terms of giving myself kind of more measurable, accurate, like realistic portrayals of what someone trying to achieve my thing is doing. You know what I mean? So that really helped. The other big steps that really helped me, and I would say would help you, is I just started. I got a bit fed up of not having anything like online and just feeling like I was not part of the race, So I just wanted to get a rejection at one point. A big part of being a writer, part of like Stephen King's book, a very famous story, is he got a bunch of rejection slips and put them on a nail as he was growing up. And then as he got older and he kept writing, he kept getting rejected, that nail like literally fell off the wall because of how heavy it was from all the weight of the receipts, or like the mail rejections he got. And he just got a bigger nail and he just put it in. And it's that kind of attitude around rejection of just like, you have to get it. And rejection is obviously something that you deal with in any kind of artistic pursuit, because it's all about taste. But for me to just finally get rejected, I just wanted that to feel like I could closer identify as a writer, So honestly, I just went on to submittable.com, found some publication that was doing poems, and I submitted a couple old poems that I had around finished. The style didn't even match up, to be fair. Again, something I'd recommend, especially if you're paying for feedback, because I paid to submit this, and it was really just because the publication guaranteed like a reply and feedback. They guaranteed that you would actually get some lines about your writing back, and that's just what I wanted. I was just like, yeah, you'll give me a wee bit of feedback. I'm happy with that. Take my tenner or whatever it was. So I would definitely say if you're paying for feedback, make sure you're putting yourself in the right place. Make sure you're going forward to the right people about it. Because like art teachers, it kind of gets all muddled up in terms of people's own personal preferences versus a professional opinion. But again, taking that small step, just submitting that poem to the guy, knowing it was going to get rejected it a couple of days later, and I just felt so accomplished. I felt like I was finally in it with a ticket, honestly. And that really brings me on to the last thing, is I changed the structure of what I was creating. I stopped kind of plotting these big stories and started writing poems again. Started finishing little pieces of work and being able to finish small things. And actually say like, no, that is finished, at least for right now. That really helped, again, make me feel more like a writer, more like someone who is completing work and can put stuff out there. And obviously I've taken this leap now in terms of putting some stuff online. So, like I said before, obviously experience. For me professionally within my job, and for me within my artistic pursuits, the only thing that has helped is to get experience. Usually I have to just force myself to take a step. Like I said, I'll kind of hit a breaking point where it's like, oh, I just want to be rejected, so I find somewhere to apply and just make it happen. Again, similar to an attempt to understand, started the newsletter just because I kind of got so fed up of not doing anything. And I was like, I kind of like the title, let's just run with it. And being able to put that online, then I thought, I might as well just make videos off of this content. The videos can kind of promote the writing anyway. And then once I saw it as like marketing for the other work, then I was like, right, off to the races, let's just try to do it. So look, in conclusion, guys, keep going, keep learning. That's the key thing, really. And trust the process. That's all you can really do. You're not an imposter. You are a work in progress, as we all are. All right. Look, let me know in the comments if you're related to this, if you felt imposter syndrome, or, if you have any similar challenge that you think obviously this advice could relate to. Let's support each other in this, and I'll try to move forward in a more positive way. That's certainly what I'm going to try to do. All right, look, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time on an attempt to understand, and hope you have a great day. All right, bye bye.